It is time for the Octopi 0.17 Part 3 video, and this one's all about webcams. So the reason for all these Octopi 0.17 videos in the first place was because users keep asking me how to set up multiple webcams in the newest version. I guess it doesn't work the same as it used to. I haven't actually ran through this process yet, but we're going to walk through it step by step in this video. So the goal is to get all the webcams working, one per multi-instance of Octoprint, and hopefully do it the easiest way possible. So we're just going to build off the last video, our multiple instance install, and hopefully by the end of this one, everything will be working correctly. So let's get into it. So here we are back in Putty. I have rebuilt the SD card from the last video. I just re-imaged it with the Octopi image. So we still need to set up the multi-instance install, but we can just run that one command. So that's the first thing I'm going to do. Multi-Octoprint has been ran. That means we copied all of the Octoprint files to Octoprint 2, 3, and 4, so we can have 4 instances, and it did update that USB file. So now we're going to go from here. We have to figure out multiple cameras. And in Octopi 0.17, things have changed. They aren't the same as we did before with the Webcam D files. So when troubleshooting like this, the first thing I'm going to do is just do a search and look around a bit. So we know we used to use Webcam D, so let's just look for that. So let's do sudo find, and we'll search in the root directory, so just /. We'll do -name to search by name, and let's look for anything that has webcam on it. Webcam asterisk. And here's what we have. So etc defaults webcam, that's usual. I'm used to that. Root bin webcam D as well, no big deal. That's just like the last install. But we don't have the etc init.d webcam service entries that we did from the last install. And that's what's changed, definitely. You can see there's some system webcam D service right here, and that's what we're going to have to attack, this portion. But just to make that a little more obvious, let's take a look at the default install a bit. Let's do service webcam D status. The initial webcam D service is up and running. You can see active running, that's good. You don't want to see exited here, that means there's something wrong. And this is the MJPEG streamer it used to start that command on device video 0. I do currently have 3 cameras plugged into this Raspberry Pi. I'll show you that a bit more in a minute. But it was successful. And this is where it loaded it from. So probably the easiest way to get around this, there are a couple of different ways we could do it, but the easiest way is to just add another service in this location called Webcam D2, and we'll enable it so it starts up at the boot of the Raspberry Pi. But we have a few other things we need to set up as well. So that's the plan. Let's just take a look in that sysd system directory real quick. There's a handful of services in here. Let's take a look at that Webcam D service. We'll just cat it. And there's only a couple of lines in here explaining the service. It's running it from root bin, that Webcam D exec start file. And we would have copied those anyway. So let's get 2 cams up. We'll just add one. We'll do that one end to end. And then I'll show you a bit of a different way. So doing this by hand, let's start with the udev rules file. If you remember from the last video, that's where we identify these different USB devices. So we'll change directory etc udev rules.d, and we're going to sudo nano 99-usb.rules to edit it. And here's our 4 default entries for our printers because we have run that script. I haven't filled any of this out yet, but that doesn't make a difference. I'm going to reload this whole thing one more time during this video just to show you how it's going to look. So by hand, we're going to need a subsystem for our webcams. You can go ahead and define your default one and any extra cams you add. So let's just copy one of these lines. We'll paste it below. And we want to change TTY to video, the number 4, Linux. And that's what you change it to for your webcams. Now you need to know your ID vendor, ID product, all that other info for your cameras. So let's just save this real quick. And let's do a cat /var/log/messages. Again, there are a handful of cameras plugged in, 3 of them in total. The easiest way to tell which one is which is to plug them in one by one, but we'll do that whole process here in a moment. We'll scroll up in the log a bit to where it actually initialized all these devices. I've got 2 C920s and a C170, all Logitech cams. The C920s have serial numbers, which is good. The C170s do not. It looks like I actually still have a fourth camera plugged in here. That's a C270, but I can't get MJPEG Streamer to support more than 3 cameras. It just doesn't like it. I don't know if it's a bug in that software. No matter what Pi or configuration USB hub that I use, it will not run more than 3 cameras. So we're just going to be focused on 3 cams. Maybe that's something we need to troubleshoot a little bit in the future. But on with this. So all the Logitech cameras, the ID vendor is going to be 046dog, and then your products are going to be just a little bit different. So a 920 is a 082D, a 270 is an 825, and a 170 up here is an 82B. So let's just set up 2 of these cameras. We'll take the C170 and one of the C920s. So we have an 82B and an 82D, and we'll also grab this serial number. 170s don't have a serial. So back to the USB file. Again, you can scroll back while editing this file. That's a nice part about Putty. All of the ID vendors for Logitech cams are going to be 046D. And then our ID products are just a little bit different from one another. So let's do the 170. We'll do 085B. And you can use DevPath or serial just like you can on the printers. I don't have to because I have a couple of cameras with serials. I advise you, if you're going to buy new cameras, get ones that have serials. I know that 270s and 920s have them, 170s don't. But I'm just going to get rid of DevPath for now. And on the 170, I don't need serial. And let's just call this Prusacam. That way we can identify that device as that name. And let's go ahead and copy this line. And we'll add one more camera. Again, ID vendor is going to be the same. The product, let's add a 920. That is a 085D. I'll scroll back just to show you that. Here's one of the 920s. It's an 82D. Sorry, not 85s. These are all 82s. 82D. And the serial of that C920 right here. I'm just going to add that serial attribute like above. And we'll paste that serial in between the quotes. And we'll make this one the Ender 3 cam. So there's 2 devices. Now we don't have to reboot yet. They're not actually devices on the system until this file gets loaded. But we can go ahead and set up the other stuff and then reboot after. So let's Control X, Y, enter to save. And let's move on to creating the webcam execute files. So we'll do change directory /root/bin. We'll take a look, ls. There's our original webcam-d file. Let's fix that one up a bit so we can tell it which camera we'd like it to use. Sudo nano webcam-d. And these have changed just a little bit from the last video. But if you scroll down a ways, you still have your camera USB options just like we did before. And we can add a device by name. So we'll do -d/dev/the device name. And we'll just make this one the Prusacam, like we just created in the USB file. And we also want to direct it to a specific port. So down here in camera HTT options, we want to take that -n, make it a -p for port, and we're going to point it to 8080. Now one trick that this file uses to find your default camera, that really messes things up when we're using a specific device. So we're just going to disable that feature. Normally you would want that because you want it to find whichever camera you plugged in because you just have one. But it's going to mess things up in this. So let's scroll down just a bit. And you'll see this variable that gets created called options, and then it has a device of default of video 0. Well, then down below, it puts all of that together and recreates that variable options and uses it later. But it has -d dev device on it. Well, it called that device video 0. That's not going to work in our case. We have a specific device we want to use. So all you have to do to keep it from doing that is add the # right there and comment that line out. Now it won't automatically add that. It'll go with the one we already added. So we can scroll back up, and these are all the changes we need to make to get it to use that camera that we assigned. So let's go ahead and Control X, Y, and enter to save. And we need a webcam D2 file for the second camera that we want to use. For now, I'm just going to copy this file to a new one and show you how to edit it manually, but I do have a script that you can use that I'll show you here in a little bit. So we'll do sudo cp for copy, webcam D, and we'll call it webcam D2. Now let's edit that webcam D2 file, nano webcam D2. We've already got our device entry because we added it in the last one. Let's just change that Prusacam to Ender 3 cam. I can't say this enough. Remember, these are always case sensitive in Linux. We'll change our port to 8081, And we've already made that change to the options value down here, but just one more time. Options now has a comment in front of it, so it won't use it. So we're good with this file. Control X, Y, enter to save. Now when webcam D and webcam D2 start, that will pull in the camera that we assigned in that USB file, one for one. But there's more we have to do. In the last one, I would have had you edit a file to point all these webcam files at their own log so you could take a look at them. In this version, it doesn't look like it's using them that way. It's just putting them all to the messages/syslog. So we won't do that step. It's not going to hurt anything. It's just a little harder to troubleshoot when you're going through logs. So the next thing we need to do here is create a service so we can start that up when the Raspberry Pi boots. We have to enable it to make sure everything's going to work every time. So as we saw before, when we checked out that service, we did the status. We're going to head into etc systemd system. So we'll change directory, etc systemd system. Take another look. There's our current webcamd service. Again, for now, we're just going to do sudo cp to copy, and we'll copy that webcamd service into webcamd2.service. And we'll edit that second service, sudo nano webcamd2 service. And we just have to make one change in here. We're going to change root bin webcamd to root bin webcamd2. That way it's going to pull from that other file that we just created over there in root bin. Control X, Y, enter to save. Now you have to enable that service, but it's pretty easy. You just use the system control option. So we can do sudo system ctl enable webcam d2. Since we copied it, the permissions should be the same. We should be good there. We can check its status now that it is a service. Sudo service webcam d2 status. It's dead. It's never been started. And you can start it. Since we haven't rebooted, this device isn't actually there yet, but you can tell that it worked, the configuration we did, because it does call it by that name. It's not going to come up quite yet, but it will after we reboot, and we'll do that here in just a second. There's one more thing that we need to put in, and that's the HA proxy settings. This is what enables you to forward that camera to a web URL. So let's change directory into etc HA proxy. We can take a look, but we're going to edit sudo nano haproxy.cfg. So we have to add a front end. So down here under front end, we're just going to add another connection to the back end. So we'll copy this line, we'll paste it, and we're going to change the webcam to webcam 2 and the back end to webcam 2. Well, now we're pointing at another back end, but it doesn't exist in this file yet. So scroll all the way to the bottom. We'll copy the initial back end webcam, we'll paste it. We're going to call this second backend webcam 2. That's what we called it up there on the front end setting. We can call it in the URL with webcam 2, so we'll add the 2 there. And in our root bin file, we assign this one to 8081. So we'll change it from 8080 to 8081. Where it says server webcam right here, just leave that 1 on all of these backends, no matter how many you add. So we can save that, Control X, Y, enter to save. And now we should be able to use both of those cameras. So let's go ahead and reboot. Sudo reboot. After the reboot's complete, we can go ahead and log back in. We're back in, and let's confirm that those USB rules are correct. So we'll do ls/dev. You should see your camera entries. We have Ender 3 cam right there, and Prusa cam right there. So that's good. We know that file is correct. And we can check our webcamd services to make sure they're running correctly. Do service webcamd status. It's active running. We're good there. And let's check service webcamd2. And there's webcam2 status. It's active and running. Now, I'm not going to lie to you. This is not easy to get working. For some reason, MJPEG doesn't like to run multiple instances on the same machine. I don't know if there's some sort of conflict or bug. But I've had this get set up where the status is always exited. You can't get them to start. But when you reboot, they come back up. Also, different mixes of cameras affect this. So if you're having problems with one kind of camera, one brand, or one specific model, change it to another one and see if you can get it to work that way. It doesn't work every time. But with a little bit of playing around, you can probably get something set up. Again, I've never had more than 3 cameras be able to work together. But we have two working right now, so let's continue on. We know the status of the cameras are good. Let's jump back out to the web interface. So we're just going to deal with our initial instance, the one at the regular IP and the one that's on port 5001. We will have to copy some webcam information from the original one over to the second one, but let's just start here. So if we go into settings and we go into webcam time lapse, for the initial entry, this is probably going to work just fine. You can go ahead and hit test. That's our Prusa cam. That is kind of a Prusa shot right there. Not really, but good enough for this. But let's leave this on this screen and we'll head to the one on 5001 and we'll go to settings, webcam, and we're going to paste some of this stuff in here. So we'll just paste this stream over to there. We also want to get the snapshot, this guy right here. We'll copy that, paste it over here, but our new snapshot port for this camera, remember we changed it to 8081. And we also need the path to our encoder, our FFmpeg. We'll just copy from this one over to this one. And for the stream for the other camera, so we're going to need the IP of the Pi, http://192.168.1.17. That's for me. And we'll also have to point it at webcam 2, because that's what we called it in the HA proxy file. So you can go ahead and hit test, and there's kind of a shot of an Ender 3. So we've got both our cameras working. You can try your snapshot if you like. It works as well. So we have two webcams working. Again, I have gotten 3 to work. If you're trying to troubleshoot one of these installs, it's not the easiest thing to do. If you get into Putty and check your service status, that second command, and it says it's failed, it's retried too many times, you're going to see something like this. Init video in failed. You can try to reboot the Pi. It might work a second time. You can also unplug the camera and plug it back in. That will reboot it, and sometimes that'll get it working. Again, this is not the easiest thing to get set up. And just to give you an idea of what the physical setup's like, I'm just using this powered Anchor hub I got off Amazon. I'm plugging in all the cameras into this hub, all 3 of them, and 1 printer. The other 3 printers are plugged into the USB ports on the Pi directly. This is both for the 4 and the 3. And one speculation that I'm going to make is everything that I'm using is USB 2.0. The cameras, the hub, a couple of ports on the 4, and all of the ports on the 3. So that could be a bottleneck when we're using all these different cameras. I really don't know, but I would like to give it a test with all 3.0 stuff through and through, just to see what it's like. So our install does kind of work, but that was a lot of manual things we had to do. Now, I do have a script for the webcams if you'd like to use it. It's out on Dropbox. So what we're going to do now is we're going to reset. I'm going to reinitialize that SD card, get us back to square one, run the multi-install, and then I'll show you what the webcam script does. So I've wiped out the SD card and I've started from scratch. First thing we need to do is do the multi-install. So I'm going to use my script. Now that the multi-install is done, I am going to reboot and I need to run through the wizards on those so we can set up the webcams. I'll go ahead and do that. All 3 of those are set up. Now let's talk about this camera script. The camera script that I created is going to set up 3 cameras, but it's going to help you set those up. There's a lot of unknowns there specific to your environment that we're still going to have to go back and fill in. It's going to make it somewhat easier, but not completely hands-off like the multi-install. Also, it is designed to run after that multi-install script. Both of these scripts are only designed to run once. If you run them more than once, you're going to have a ton of cleanup you have to go back and do. You might as well just go ahead and reset from scratch and try it again. So only run this if you've already ran your multi-install, or things might get a little crazy in that USB file. As I've stated before in the past, these things always work better with a fresh install of Octopi, not something you've already had around for a while. So there's all my disclaimers. Let's go ahead and get into it. So instead of having to do a lot of that stuff manually, I'm going to run this script. It is out on Dropbox. There will be a link for you to run it if you'd like. Basically, it does the same thing as the other script. We go out to Dropbox, we pull a script file called multicam, we chmod that script so we can execute it, then we execute it. So I'm going to go ahead and hit it. You have to have your root password. It pulled it. The script's complete. So let's take a look at that script real quick, just so I can show you what's in it. Again, it's just the same stuff that we would run manually. So let's cat multicam.sh. And here you can take a look. We're getting into root bin. We're using the sed command to make some changes. We're setting up the 8081 cam. We're creating a webcam 2 and 3. We're CH modding 2 and 3. We're creating the service. We're enabling the service. We're doing all of our edits in HA proxy. So you shouldn't have to change anything in those. But there are a few things you will still have to update, especially this USB file, because I don't know which cameras you use. So let's start by getting your cameras configured and getting them separated out so we know which one's which. And again, I think the easiest way to do that is to unplug all the cameras and just tail the messages log and get the numbers. So let's do a tail-f/var/log/messages. This will continually tail the messages log. I've unplugged all the cameras and I've plugged back in the C170 cam that's pointed at the Prusa. Remember, we're starting from scratch here, so I can walk you through this step by step. So let's stop this tail, Control-C, and let's go update our 99 USB rules file. There are generic entries out there for the cameras. That was done with the script. So we'll sudo nano etc udev rules/99-usb.rules. And here's all the generic entries. Again, I'm starting from scratch, so all the printer stuff isn't in there, but that's okay for this video. So we'll need our ID vendor, our ID product, dev path if you need to use it. I don't recommend it if you don't have to, and your serials. Again, while in Nano, you can scroll back up. Here's our C170 information. All Logitechs are 046Ds. So we'll just go ahead and update all of our ID vendors because I'm using all Logitech cams. And a C170, its ID product is 082B. So we'll just take this top entry right here for that C170, 082B. I'm not going to use the dev path because I only have one camera that doesn't have a serial. I don't need the serial for the C170 because it doesn't have a serial. And I'm going to name this one Prusa Cam because it's the one pointed at the Prusa. Now let's move on. We'll Control X, Y, enter to save this file. Let's go ahead and tail that messages log again. Now I've plugged in the C920 that's pointed at my Lulzbot Mini. A 920 has a 4.6 dog because it's Logitech, but then it has 082D as the ID product. They also have a serial. So I'm going to go ahead and grab this serial. I'm going to Control-C this to stop that tail. Go back and edit our 99 USB.rules file, and we'll just use this second entry. We've already updated the ID vendor. Our ID product on a 920 is 082D. We don't need the dev path because we have a serial number. We will use the serial attribute for this. We'll paste our serial number that we just copied right here. Remember, in Putty, you can just highlight and then right-click to paste. And let's call this one our Bot Mini Cam. We can Control X, Y, enter to save. Let's start that tail one more time. And now I've plugged in the C920 that's looking at our Ender 3. Should be exactly the same as the last entry because it's the same camera except for this serial number. So we'll copy that. Let's stop this tail. Control-C, edit our rules file. It's still a 920, so 082D. Dev path we don't need. And we'll update our serial. And let's call this the Ender 3 cam. Now we have all of our cameras identified and we know their names. Now the script does a lot of stuff, but I don't know what you're going to call your cameras, so I can't update their device names. So that's the only other update you will have to make manually. So let's Control X one more time, Y, enter to save this. And we need to get into root bin and make a couple of quick updates. So let's change directory /root/bin. We've got our 3 webcamd files. Let's edit webcamd, sudo nano webcamd. If you scroll down a bit, the script made a -dev entry in here for you, but it didn't know what name you wanted to use. So you have to come down to this entry and enter the camera name that you just set up in your USB file, whichever one you'd like to use. So we're going to do Prusa Cam. Remember, these are always case sensitive. If you scroll down a bit, you can see that I've already commented out that option for you right here. The script does that as well. So this one's done. Control X, Y, enter to save. Let's update webcamd2. We'll scroll down and update our device name. We'll make this one the Bot Mini Cam. Your port has already been updated to 8081, and the option down below has already been commented out. The script did that. So we're good here. Control X, Y, enter to save. One more time, we're going to update the webcam 3 file. And this will be our /dev/ender3 cam. Port's already been updated. Options already been updated down below. Again, we should be good. While we're in here, just real quick though, if you want to change your resolution, you'll do that in these files. 640 by 480 is going to work by default on a lot of cams at 10 frame rate, but there is a web page, I'll leave it in the description, where you can go consult who's used that camera before and at what resolution to see if you want to change it up. If the camera's not working, you might consider coming in here and updating that to see if you can get it going. But for now, Control X, Y, enter to save, and everything should be set up and ready to go. So now all we have to do is reboot one more time. Sudo reboot. On reboot, it's probably a great idea to run your ls/dev just to make sure all the cameras are showing up correctly. Got the Prusa cam, into 3 cam, bot mini cam, so that looks good. It's also a good idea to check and make sure the services are working. Sometimes on a reboot, some of the cameras will work, some of them won't. We can check that with service webcam D status. So what you're looking for is active running. So webcam D is good. Let's check 2. Number 2 failed. We'll get back to that in a second. Let's check 3. Number 3 is good, active running. So we know some of them are working correctly. Webcam D2 is having a problem. If you run into this, which it's really common, the first thing I would try is restarting the service. So let's do sudo service webcam D2 restart. We'll let it restart for a second. We'll check our status again. It's still coming up. Check status again, and it failed. So if you're still having problems, the next thing I would do is go unplug that camera and plug it back in. I have reset just that camera. Let's go ahead and try to restart that service one more time. We'll give it a second to come up. We'll check status, and now it's active running. Again, I'm not sure what makes these fail and makes them so unpredictable. Again, I think it's something in MJPEG Streamer. I hope to see Octoprint upgrade to something else in the future, but this is what we're stuck with for now. So all 3 cameras are good. Let's head back to the web interface. So the initial instance, the one that's on the main IP, you shouldn't have to do anything with the settings. You can just go to control, and if your cameras are working, there's our Prusa cam. So that's fine. But we do want to copy these settings into these other instances. Remember, I did reset the whole SD card. So let's go to settings and webcam, and then we can just again copy and paste a lot of this stuff over to the other instance. Let's go to the 5001 instance. So there's nothing on the control tab. We'll go to settings, webcam, and we'll just copy this in from the initial one. We will have to make a change to that in a second. We'll go ahead and copy our snapshot URL and our encoder. And I'll go ahead and do that on the third one. You don't have to watch me do it. Okay, now we have the base copied and pasted in the other 2 instances. We do need to update these. They do have to be a fully qualified location. So let's do http:// and then the IP of your Raspberry Pi. Mine is 192.168.1.17. And then it's not on webcam. Remember in HA proxy, we changed that over to webcam 2. And then down here in snapshot, we can leave that at localhost 127.0.0.1, but we need to change the port over to 80.81, because that's what we made it in HA proxy. Now if you hit test, there's our lulzbot minicam. Snapshot, again, update to 80.81. We can test the snapshot. There it is. We're good. We can save this. We'll move on to instance 3. Again, we have the defaults in here. We just need to add the IP, http:// 192.168.1.17, and we'll change webcam to webcam 3. We can test. There's our Ender 3 cam. Snapshot, we moved this one to 80.82. We'll test. We're good there too. We can save this. Now if we go to control tab, and if you're having problems getting your camera to show up in your control tab, it works when you test it in settings, but not out here. It's probably your browser. I know you probably hear that all the time. You need to clear your cache or whatever to fix a certain problem, but it actually probably will work in this instance. Even if we go to Microsoft Edge rather than Chrome, the control tabs will work because I don't use Edge. There's nothing out here in the cache that might be incorrect. The control tabs work just fine. You can clear that by going over here to the ellipse, settings, go down to advanced, privacy and security, clear browser data. And you can get rid of as much as you want. I'm just going to get rid of everything. We can close the browser down. And if we go back in, our control tabs are working again. Just a trick if something's not working for the control tab. I've had that happen a lot of times. And that is your multicam install, as simple as I know how to get it done. I know it's still really long-winded and it doesn't always work every time, but this is as good as I could figure it out for now. Hopefully we'll get a different version sometime soon. And I'm not even going to do the boot up test in between the Pi 3 and the Pi 4, because no matter what I try, it doesn't seem to make a difference. I was really hoping that the Pi 4 with the extra CPU and memory would allow us to run more cameras. But whatever's in the USB system and that MJPEG Streamer application doesn't seem to allow us to do that. And that is somewhat disappointing. But this video brings up a lot of questions about this install that I want to visit in a future video. Maybe a little bit of a troubleshooting guide for a multi-camera, multi-instance install. But that will be for another day. Hopefully you found this video series helpful. If you did, please consider giving it a thumbs up or subscribe to my channel. If not, leave your thoughts in the comments below. And as always, thanks for watching.